Welcome to the 2-year anniversary of Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Our very first episode published on October 28, 2023. In honor of the second anniversary of this podcast, the theme of our episode is going to be one suggested by our very first guest, Liz Armstrong. Unfortunately, as we prepared for this one, we realized that we didn't know very much about the topic at all. So, that kind of seems perfect for this. So the topic for this episode for our impending anniversary is David Lynch films. Liz sent us a suggestion quite a while ago, and she suggested that we might enjoy talking about David Lynch films, his music, the way he uses music in his films, etc.
Hey man, sorry I was a little late to the recording. So
yeah, I was wondering where the hell you were.
That's all right. But I'm excited about this episode. I mean, John Lynch was one of the greatest safeties to play in the NFL. He's a fantastic GM for the 49ers. I went back and watched some of his games. I mean, what?
Dude.
What?
David.
You don't think John Lynch was that good?
David Lynch.
What?
Liz,
no, his name is John Lynch. John Lynch. He's a
Liz said
David Lynch, the director, producer guy?
Yeah, he's a writer, director, producer. He makes films.
I don't know anything about David Lynch.
All right, then let's get started.
I'm just kidding, Liz. I knew we were doing this one.
So I'm going to tell you, I spent $15 renting some of the fucking weirdest movies in my life so I could do research for this goddamn episode.
I didn't.
I rented 2 movies that I swore never to watch again, just so I could talk about them in this episode. And you know what? I want my money back.
There's also a Jane Lynch. She's pretty funny too. She's a good actress.
Actually, we probably would do a better episode about Jane Lynch, I think. So John Lynch died like about a year ago, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. Yeah. He is considered one of the most kind of crucial filmmakers of, I want to say, the 80s, 90s into the 2000s. And there were lots of kind of tributes and homages to him when he passed away. And I always think about David Lynch films as stuff that I like until I think about individually about the films that I've watched. And I realize that I almost never get what he's trying to do.
Yeah, and very similar experience. I am sure that I'm just dumb and not in tune with intelligent stuff that's going on in film. But he's one of those guys that struck me as sometimes it was well received because it was weird, and people thought because it was weird, it was good. And it probably was. It just never really resonated with me, and I stopped watching his stuff. I didn't go back. There's some films in here I can discuss that I enjoyed when they came out. And I think they almost seem like slight attempts to be a little more popular with the ones that I maybe gravitated towards. But it just, for example, I mean, he did Dune, right? The original movie.
Yes.
And you and I both love the books and the newer versions of the movie. And I just couldn't watch it. It was
it's awful, and kind of by acclaim. Most people think that's an awful movie, but he always. I guess my problem with him has been that I feel like lots of times he's edgy for edgy's sake.
Yeah,
and sometimes to me it's at the expense of the story. It's at the expense of figuring out what the hell was going on. But when I started to think about this, I broke the films down, and he's made a lot of films. If you look at his credits, just as a director, he's got 123 credits as a director. Wow. But that also includes he's done tons of music videos. And as an older director, as an older person, he did a lot of short films too. So I give him credit. I think he's a really creative guy, and he just had things he wanted to say and put out there. short films don't make you any money, so I don't think he was necessarily doing it for the cash. But he hit it really big with a lot of acclaim, I think, right out of film school. And the movie that I think caught people's attention was something called Eraserhead, which came out in 1977. And then he did The Elephant Man, which I think was critically acclaimed in 1980. And then he also, later in that decade was Twin Peaks, which was TV, but that's really what put him on the map, I think. But I never watched Twin Peaks. I didn't watch the show, and I never saw, I think there's 1 or 2 films that he made after the fact. At least one, I know. And I never saw any of the Twin Peaks stuff. So I can't speak to that at all. And I wasn't going to rent the entire series of Twin Peaks to get ready for this episode. But I did come up with a list of what I thought were his best films and his worst films based upon the ones that I saw. And I haven't seen everything he's done, but it turns out I'd seen quite a bit. And pretty much every film that was on my worst film list that I was able to rewatch stayed firmly in the worst film list. Like it didn't turn out, I didn't get stuff when I was younger. I didn't get it, a week ago either. I just don't really enjoy it. And unfortunately, a couple of movies that I thought were really good or remembered liking when I watched them the first time, also not that big a fan of anymore. So it turns out my opinion of David Lynch, it's probably been reduced as a result of getting ready for this episode.
Dude, that game against the Packers, John Lynch was fire.
Yeah, he could hit like a truck. I remember
that. So let's start with the worst movies. Let's go with negative first, and then we'll end on a positive note, maybe. So what did you feel what do you think is like? I think Dune is horrible.
That was the first on my list of the worst ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one, and I told a story about this quite a while ago. The movie Blue Velvet came out in 1986, which was firmly when we were in college, and it was a big hit. Like I think it won awards at Cannes. I know that it was a big festival film. I know it got a wide release, and people went to it, and that's when I heard a lot of people raving about David Lynch as a director, and I'm pretty sure that's what got him the ability to make Twin Peaks on TV. I went to that film. Joe Clemente suggested that we do a double date with this girl that he had just started dating, and he wanted to take somebody else with, and he had heard that Blue Velvet was supposed to be really good, so we should go see that. And he took Lisa, who is now his wife, to see that film. And I took a girl who I had never gone out with before. I asked a girl out on a first date. So I took a girl on a first date to see Blue Velvet. And it was an only date.
She thinks she was looking at you through the whole movie like,
oh my God,
what the fuck did I sign up for?
I think that's exactly what happened. At the end of that evening was like, well, thanks, had a nice time. See ya. Although I will say, pretty impressive Lisa, because she got married to Joe, and they've been married for 3 decades now. So it just proves
that true love can overcome anything, even David Lynch.
Even David Lynch. But that is, I rewatched that movie. I saw the only time I ever saw it was in the theater, a double date with Joe, and I vowed never to watch it again because it creeped me out so much. So last week, I broke my vow in preparation for this episode, and I watched it, and it is, I think, worse than I thought that I remember it was. It is so crazy. The scenes with Dennis Hopper, where he's breathing oxygen or whatever it is he's breathing through the mask. You've seen the movie, right?
Yeah, I've seen it.
It is insane. And my impression of David Lynch after watching a handful of movies over the last week or so is that as a director, I feel like he generally urged his actors to overact in everything. And that's what that felt like. Everybody was so fucking over the top. And then the violent imagery was really violent, and he would have all these kind of flashing other things that would show up. And it started out on my list of worst films, and I think dropped even further in my estimation after I rewatched it.
So, serious question. Do you think Kyle MacLachlan would have had a career if not for David Lynch? Because he was
I don't think so.
So much of his stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously he was Blue Velvet, and he was the only actor in that film that I felt didn't completely, overact his ass off throughout it. But obviously he was also the lead in Twin Peaks, and I think that made his career. Another one, and truthfully, worse than Blue Velvet, possibly worse than Dune, is that first movie I mentioned before, Eraserhead. Have you seen Eraserhead?
I've avoided it like the plague.
It's a black and white film. It very much, looks like somebody's first feature film. It looks almost like a student film. It is it is gross. It is crazy. It doesn't make any sense. And like I said, I remember in the late 70s kind of hearing about David Lynch and that movie Eraserhead. Like it was playing at indie theaters. I think it was a big college hit, that kind of thing. I tried to watch it about 25, 30 years ago. I remember renting it, trying to increase my my, I guess, pop culture IQ, so I could say I knew about David Lynch, and I couldn't finish it back then. And that's why I remembered it as being one of his worst films. And I watched it last week. I found it streaming for free somewhere, thank God. And you know what? Didn't finish it. Got three quarter. I made it further. I think I stopped halfway through the first time. I think I made it three quarters of the way through. And then at a certain point, I kind of looked at the clock and I looked up in the air and I thought, I don't only have so many hours left on this planet. Why would I continue to watch this awful film? So I just stopped. So I still don't know how it ended, and I absolutely don't care. It was I know it was kind of the beginning of the legend of David Lynch, but I just don't get it.
That seems like it should be some sort of rating for a film, is how far you can get through it without stopping.
Yeah, I think they should
So
call it the Lynch rating.
I,
How many Lynches?
it was half a watch. I was able to watch half of it.
Yeah, that's the standard Lynch deviation, I think, man.
All right. Well, I think unless there's others that you want to further de-escalate in your ratings.
No, I did have a couple films that I had listed as films I remembered liking, and and then there was one that I think is it's supposed to be good, but I realized I didn't watch and I didn't get around. I wasn't able to get around to watch it. I had never seen The Elephant Man.
Yeah.
So I again, I think that won some awards. I think it's supposed to be good. I can't render any kind of opinion because I still have never seen that one. I did the two of the movies that I did rent and watch over the last 7 to 10 days were movies that I remembered liking. One of them was Wild at Heart with Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern. And I remembered really liking that movie. I think I did see it in the theater. It came out in 1990. I think I may have gone to see it, like that's right around when we were rooming together after college, like I was in law school maybe. I remember thinking I really liked that movie. And when I rewatched it recently, I realized I didn't like that movie. I just like seeing Laura Dern naked a lot. She is naked in that movie a lot. And that is absolutely all I was thinking about back then. I am sure of it now that I watched it because it's full on overacting Nicolas Cage. Everybody is screaming and making faces, and it's better than the movies I had on my worst list, but it's not good. And other than all the nudity, like I think a third of it are just sex scenes with Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern. So that one,
Well,
I
wait a
guess
second
it.
though. I'm having a hard time believing some of your review of this. You're telling me that Nicolas Cage overacted?
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, talk about the building a legend. That was one of the first crazy ass Nicolas Cage things we saw.
David Lynch must have been super excited when he saw Nicolas Cage. He's like, I got an overactor on my hands.
Exactly. I think he's like, cut it loose, baby. Cut it loose. Make faces and yell.
And Nicolas Cage is one of my favorites. I'm making fun of him, but I still love many of his movies. Not this
And
one though.
truthfully, he was subdued in this movie compared to some of the other acting that you saw. So,
Yeah.
and Laura Dern was fine, but again, I think it's mainly because she was naked and she looked great naked. Which leads me to the movie I watched last night. which I thought I liked. And I will say that this one wasn't so bad in comparison, rewatching it so many years later. But I watched Mulholland Drive last night. The problem is I don't understand the ending of it all. I actually Googled it afterwards to try to figure out what the ending meant, and I know what they say now. I still don't. I would never have gotten it from the movie, but I remember thinking that I enjoyed that movie. Turns out, a lot of naked lesbian love scenes in that movie. So I think that if you're early 20s, male, cis male, back in the 80s and 90s, that's why you were watching David Lynch, was because he managed to get a lot of women naked in his films. So it's really weird. There's a twist 2/3 of the way through the movie that is like, it's like the movie starts with a car crash, but the twist I think was more violent to me than 2/3 of the way through. All of a sudden, every character is completely different and nothing makes sense anymore. And as I said, I read up on it kind of after the fact, and I get what he was going for, because his thing was always the ugliness underneath, right? And I think that's
Right.
been pretty consistently. I know that's kind of how Twin Peaks was supposed to be, from what I've heard. I know that was the whole idea behind Mulholland Drive, about what Hollywood was like actually underneath. Blue Velvet was definitely like, here's your beautiful suburb, and here's all this creepy stuff going on underneath. So that's why his movies, I think, are so in your face about this stuff. But I don't know, man. It was tough to watch. Even Mulholland Drive. I mean, it's almost 2.5 hours. It was kind of a slog last night to go through all of it, particularly the last third of it. Have you seen that one?
I did years ago, and I don't remember completely hating it,
Yeah,
but yeah, I
again,
don't remember liking it either, unfortunately. I mean, I think he had a very well-deserved reputation. Like you said, that message is, I understand the message he's trying to send, and I think he did it in a creative, albeit creepy way, many times. I
yeah,
just
creepy is the
it
best way to put it.
Yeah, I just could never connect. It's like
Yeah,
I'll have a post facto for our next episode because I'm going down to see Lucas tonight. We're gonna watch the end of that movie that I'm like, this seems like a
yeah,
David Lynch movie.
yeah,
So
yeah. And that's well, before we go on, in terms of the best films, there was one film on the list that I believed was a good film by David Lynch, and I also stand by that. In fact, his film, The Straight Story, which came out in 1999, is one of probably my top 20 all-time films. It's fantastic. It's so well acted. It's so well written. It's so well paced, even though it's got a very slow pace to it. That's the movie about a guy named Alvin Straight who decided to go visit his brother. His brother was in Wisconsin. He lived in Iowa. Alvin had lost his license, and he drove a riding lawnmower pulling a trailer all the way from his home in Iowa to, I think, like eastern Wisconsin. And the whole film is about him making this trek and going, literally driving on the highways with this lawnmower and meeting people and having these connections with people. It is so different than every other David Lynch movie I've ever seen, and it's beautiful. It is so well made. It's just visually, it's beautiful. The music is great. The score is great. The acting is fantastic. It is just a complete 180 from all of the other movies we just talked about. And that was the first one on my best David Lynch list going into my research, and it stays there by far. And it's actually, as I said, on one of my lists of all-time great movies. If you haven't seen Straight Story, I recommend it highly because it's such a great, great movie.
I have not seen that one, and every list I've looked at picks that one as his number
Is
one
that
rated
right?
movie. Yep.
Yeah,
I've only
it's
looked at a couple because I don't want to put too much research into this, but
yeah, I love it. I actually probably watch it every couple years. I own the Blu-ray, and it's just so strange that that's the same director. And of course, it's there's 22 years, right? From 1977
yeah.
to 1999, everybody grows and gets different. But I think after Straight Story, he jumped right back into crazy music and short films and all kinds of other, kind of creepy stuff, as I said. But that's the thing about him. It's just what you said. I think we have to respect his impact on film. And it is very clear that he influenced a lot of directors who make movies that I love. Like there is a clear influence on, for example, the Coen brothers.
Yes.
Anything you read about David Lynch, usually the Coen brothers come up as kind of benefactors of what he did in the 70s and 80s. And I love Coen brothers movies. In fact, one day I want us to do an episode about Coen brothers films. So you have to respect that, but you don't necessarily have to watch the movie.
All right. I would suggest we do a draft, but I have a feeling that we would fight over the first pick. Whoever took Straight Story would win, and we would not want to draft any other movies.
Yeah, I think
So
this is not a draftable episode. I guess we could draft like the worst ones and have an argument over whether Blue Velvet is worse than Eraserhead. But yeah,
And
I would agree.
I feel slightly bad. I mean, I David Lynch had far more impact, probably in 5 minutes of his life than I ever will.
Yeah, yeah. And he was
And
he was a musician as well. He had two or three albums that he put out. He's a writer. He was very big into transcendental meditation. I read a book that he wrote. I think I read it right after he passed away, called "Catching the Big Fish," because I was interested both in TM a little bit and more in him. And although it's ostensibly about meditation, it's really just a memoir of his film work. And in that, he talks a lot about how music is really, really important in what he creates. And the thing is, though, is if you listen to the albums, one of the albums he put out is called "Crazy Clown Time," and I listened to it, and let's just say that his art was consistent because it sounded like the soundtrack to a David Lynch film, and it sounded kind of crazy, like I didn't really like it very much, but he was always a creator, and he was always very true to himself, and you have to respect that if you don't respect anything
right. Okay. Well,
else. Oh, there you go, Liz.
yeah, sorry, Liz. I'm not sure if we did you right.
Just,
But it did lead to a lot of conversations between Tom and I about how to handle this episode.
yep, that's for
And I
sure.
think I got some good other stuff coming up that's sort of referencing David Lynch. So there you go.
Yes, plenty of quotes, I think.
And I hadn't thought about John Lynch in a long time, so I may go back and look at some of his stuff.
There you go. There you go. We watched that game show thing with Jane Lynch on it, if you want.
Yeah. All right. That concludes our discussion of David Lynch and brings us to staff picks.
Just around the corner from you.
Staff picks are Chris and my opportunity to tell you about stuff that we like or that we're excited for that's coming out soon in pop culture. So generally speaking, we pick music or book or movie or something that just came out or is on its way out. And I believe you have a relatively new song, if I'm not mistaken.
I do. And I find it kind of funny that I picked a song by Shabuzi. But I did pick a song by Shabuzi and Stephen Wilson Jr., who I believe your brother recommended to you a while ago and
Yep.
seems to be rising in stature ever since. So third song in has kicked off the career of Stephen Wilson Jr., as far as I'm
You're
concerned.
welcome, Stephen.
Exactly. But it's take a drive, take a walk. I'm sorry, not a drive. I have Mulholland Drive stuck in my head. It's Take a Walk by Shabuzi and Stephen Wilson Jr. I love the song. Those two sing well together. I think they sort of take turns, but I appreciate Shabuzi more in this song than I do some of his other more pop stuff. And Stephen Wilson's got a great voice. I've been listening to more of his stuff. It's from the movie The Long Walk, and I will never, ever, ever, ever go see that movie. It looks It's getting great reviews, but it just looks fucked up.
Yeah, I saw a trailer for that, man, and it scared the hell out of me. I'm not getting near that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, I didn't think you would. But you can listen to this. You can listen to this song because I think you like Mr. Wilson Jr.
I do. And I haven't heard the song yet, so I plan to listen very soon. My staff pick is an artist I was unaware of who was recently signed by Bloodshot Records. I found out about it because I saw a social media post from Bloodshot celebrating the fact that they signed Sammy Brew, B-R-U-E, Brew. He's got a couple prior albums out that I've been able to listen to, but the album that's coming out any day now is called The Journals. And when I looked into that a little bit, I found a quote from Sammy saying that I spent the winter of 2023 traveling through a box of Justin's journals that were on loan from his wife, Jen. I found never recorded songs, half written songs that I had the honor of finishing, and also was inspired to write one last song to say thank you and goodbye. The Justin he's referring to is Justin Townes Earl. Mm-hmm. So it reminds me of what Billy Bragg and Wilco did with the Woody Guthrie Lost Songs, where they made a couple albums worth of music of stuff that Woody Guthrie had written but had never put on tape anywhere. That apparently is what this new album is going to be, called The Journals. I went back, as I said, and listened to some of his old stuff, and old, I mean like a year or two old, not that old. He's a relatively new artist. He's got a really, really interesting voice, and I very much like the stuff he's already put out. And I am absolutely looking forward to this new Bloodshot release, which, as I said, is either coming out within a week or so after this episode, or may already be out by the time you listen to this.
Very cool. I've not heard of him. I've obviously heard of Justin Townes Earl, and looking forward to hearing that one.
Yeah. It's listen to his old stuff, because I do think you'll like the voice. Very distinctive, very odd, I guess, kind of that thing you can get away with when you sing Americana or country music. But it just, I like his lyrics. I'm really curious to see what he does with stuff that Justin Townes Earl wrote, and it should be worthwhile, I think.
Very cool.
Our next segment is Loft of Wisdom.
You better open up your eyes, babe, because fools do get wise.
So Loft of Wisdom is where Tom and I add favorite quotes, meaningful quotes, any kind of quotes to our virtual loft. Tom and I had wooden lofts in our corner double while we were roommates in college, and would write stuff up there in any number of states that we were in, and sometimes not even remember putting them up. And unfortunately, we lost those quotes, didn't take pictures back then. So we'll have a virtual one where we will be able to keep these forever, for as long as the internet lasts. So what do you got for our first quote of the week, Thomas?
So the quote that I came up with comes from the movie The Straight Story, my favorite David Lynch movie. It quotes the character Alvin Straight, who I love as a character. I love the actor who played him. I thought he did such a great job with it. And the quote is in response to a question from a guy who was helping him out on his trip across country, they were talking about Alvin being old and growing old. And the quote we're putting on the loft is, "The worst part of being old is remembering when you was young." And I saw this movie back in the early 2000s, and it hit me then when I was young. It hits me even harder these days. But what's really funny is that the runner-up quote was in the same scene, him talking to the same guy, when the guy asked him what he had learned and what had come from his age and wisdom. And Alvin says, "I know to separate the wheat from the chaff and let the small stuff fall away." And that's a much more positive kind of philosophical quote. But the one that always stuck with me was what he says a couple seconds later when he says, "The worst part of being old is remembering when you was young." So that's my quote for the law.
Very nice. I like it. A couple episodes ago, Tom and I had the pleasure of previewing a new album by a friend of the show, Dan Doherty. His band put out a brand new album. It should be available to our listeners now if you go to the various streaming services. You'll find information about it on our website under the As Mentioned page. But the third song on that album, Heyday, is called Brand New Plan. And I can't get that song out of my head. A very unique, albeit retro type of feel to it. I love the lyrical delivery by Dan, and it's a catchy ass song. And I just go in with really the main part of it, which is brand new plan. Going away is the only way to come back again. And there's a couple other great lines in the song, including feeling like an asshole, which I do more and more these days. But I'm going with the refrain part of the song, and I'd really encourage folks to listen to the new album and to the third song in Brand New Plan.
Yeah, that's a great one. It's a great line, and I really enjoy that in that album too. Next, we have Post Facto.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
Post Facto is where Tom and I correct things we got wrong in previous episodes, complete thoughts that we didn't finish, which happens all the time, and also gives us an opportunity to give feedback from our various listeners, including Tom's dad.
That's true. That's true. I have a few Post Factos. I guess one technically is correcting a mistake, but two things were recommendations that you had made that I wanted to circle back and talk about a little bit. In a previous episode, you had talked about, as a staff pick, I think, the new album by Mike Reed, a former pro football player, that he had done with Joe Henry, who is a favorite artist of mine. And I hadn't been able to listen to the album before you mentioned it in the episode. I've listened to it since, and my response was, "Meh, I didn't love it. I think Mike Reed's voice is just a little boring to me. His songwriting, I think, is impressive, and he's made a great career as a songwriter. But I also think my expectations were different, because truthfully, I thought I was going to hear Joe Henry's voice, which I really like Joe Henry a lot. So it was fine. I didn't love it. On the other hand, another recommendation you made, another staff pick, was a guy named Dylan Alt, who put out an acoustic album called The Thicket. And I think you recommended the song The Thicket from that album. I listened to the song, and then I listened to the whole album, and I really thought it was awesome. I love that. It does feel a little Zach Bryan, Tyler Childers, Wyatt Flores. Like there's a movement right now where all these guys sound a little bit the same. But as I said in my notes, who gives a fuck? It was really good. I really enjoyed it. And I really like that song, The Thicket. I think the lyrics are really good. I love his voice. I think he's got a great delivery. And there's a lot of good acoustic instruments, playing of acoustic instruments throughout the album, including there's a song called The Engineer that has great fiddle. And there's a nice harmonica part on a song called I Know Now. So whereas I would not join you in recommending the Mike Reed album, I would absolutely recommend the Dylan Alt album. I thought it was really fucking good.
Yep, I agree with you on that one. And I actually agree with you on both. I chose the Mike Reed one as much for the story of him being a former Bengal. I agree. I've listened to it a couple times, and his voice is not outstanding. Probably wasn't even when he wasn't as old as he is now, but I think overall it's still a solid album and a good story, like I said.
Yeah, definitely a good story. I agree with that. And then finally, I have a post facto, which is technically a correction. We were talking about the greatest of all time athletes, and I was talking a little bit about the fact that I never did go see the Steelers during the heyday of the Steel Curtain and all the Super Bowls back in the 70s and early 80s. And I mentioned that I wasn't really sure why we didn't go to see games, because we would go see Pirates games and Penguins games. And I said it might have just been the cost of the tickets. And my dad listened to the episode and texted me afterwards and said, just listen to your podcast. Clarification. We didn't take you guys to Steelers games because we were fucking Bears fans. And I was like, you know what? That's fair. That makes all the sense in the world to me. So my dad was born and raised in the Chicago area, and he was a Bears fan from way back. So now I get it. Why would you go to a Steelers game if you're a Bears fan? I don't go to Bears games. So I apologize to my old man, and I felt that needed to be corrected.
I love your old man.
Next up are playlist picks. Every week, Chris and I select one song each for our ongoing Season 9 playlist. And this week, my choice for the playlist is from the Wild at Heart soundtrack, the David Lynch film. It's also from Chris Isaak's album Heart-Shaped World, which came out in 1989. But the song is Wicked Game. And it was ubiquitous back then. After that movie came out, you heard this song constantly. I like Chris Isaak in small doses, and this is one of my favorite Chris Isaak songs.
All right. I went a slightly different path, but I'm sticking with it. So I went with the song by Quiet Hollers, who I've done before. I went on a binge this past weekend and I listened to all their, that's all I listened to is Quiet Hollers. So they have like 4 or 5 albums. Their latest stuff is very, it's got a weirder edge to it. Not the latest, which I think, Death Breath, which I like a lot. But the album prior just had a slight weirdness to it. And I went all the way back to the first album, which I love. It's a little bit more of a straightforward sound for them, but it put their whole catalog into perspective for me. I think that if David Lynch made a movie today, he'd likely pick a song by Quiet Hollers to be on it. So I went with an earlier song called Their Dark Robes, which is weird. It's a good song, but it's so the refrain of the song is, yeah, let me go because you can't save me when they drag me from my bed in their dark robes. Let me go, and someday, baby, I'll return a stronger man for what I've known. I will return a stronger man for what I've known. But that's the title song is Their Dark Robes. It's a beautiful song. He really wails on the song. I like his voice a lot. It's just kind of weird. And some of their songs, like Mont Blanc, is cool ass song, kind of science fictiony and weird. I think they would have made it onto a David Lynch soundtrack. So I'm going.
Yeah, that lyric definitely sounds like a David Lynch. It sounds like part of his script.
Yeah. So that's what we got, man.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, that's the end of our David Lynch episode. It is almost 2 years of Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. How are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling pretty good now that we got the David Lynch episode behind us. I was I will admit that I was a little nervous about this one because I knew that I wouldn't have time to prepare and I have not seen a lot of his stuff. You did an admirable job both of carrying the show today and carrying the preparation by spending $15 to rent a bunch of David Lynch shit.
Yeah, the timing worked out because my wife was out of town, so I had time to watch films. But in retrospect, I don't know. I would have rather maybe rewatched, Breaking Bad or The Sopranos or something, because that was a rough, I don't know, 9 hours of film watching I just did this last week.
Well, it was for a good cause, so thank you for doing that and getting us through the David Lynch episode. Thank you, Liz, for suggesting it. I'm not sure if we did it justice, but we did the best we could.
Which is all you can ask.
That's right.
I guess. You could probably ask for more, but you're not going to get anything else.
Not from us.
Not from us.
All right. Third Song In is recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and Joliet, Illinois.
You can email us with your questions, your comments, your suggestions to thirdsongin@gmail.com. We urge you to do so.
Check out our website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. All kinds of stuff on there. We have links to the episodes. We have links to our blogs. Tom and I each do a blog every other week. Those are all there on our As Mentioned page. You can get information about all our previous guests and all of our future guests. Check it out.
Please follow us wherever you listen to your podcast. Rate and review us on all the platforms: Spotify, Amazon, etc., etc. Give us all your fucking stars. Hand them over. You don't need them. We need your stars. Also, download the podcast and tell people about it. Word of mouth does wonders for us.
You can also download our playlists. As Tom and I just mentioned, they're all available on the major streaming services. You search for Third Song In. There's a playlist for each of our seasons. We're now in season 9. There's also a playlist every time we've had a guest on. So if you, again, search for Third Song In, you should be able to find it. There are also links on our website to those playlists to make it a little bit easier for you.
We also have a social media presence. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us on Blue Sky. We do our best not only to put stuff out about the podcast and our blogs, but also try to forward on dates and projects of all of our guests, everybody who's been on the podcast. And we urge you to take a look on social media and follow them as well.
You can get to our blogs through our website, thirdsongandpodcast.com, which I just mentioned. However, to make it even easier for you, you can subscribe to our blogs through Substack. And every Friday morning, you would get the latest blog delivered straight to your inbox. Tom and I are very excited to welcome to next week's episode Sloan Armstrong. Sloan is a horror enthusiast, a foodie, and a lifelong artist who's going to be joining us from Roseburg, Oregon. We look forward to the discussion and learning more about Sloan.
You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Thanks for listening.
All right,
Next
that
up
brings
is-
us. Oh, fuck.
Isn't it funny
No.
how we wait the
I know.
exact same amount of time? You'd think we
I
would
got
have
it.
figured it out in 2 years.
No, I think in 2 years we've become so well timed to each other that we constantly talk over. All right, a couple episodes ago, we had the pleasure of previewing a new album by our buddy Tom. God.
We are buddies. You're not
Yeah.
wrong. But I don't have a new album coming out.
We will also always have a playlist of, God, just fucking talk, you idiot.
I don't remember where we
I
are.
don't even know where to go.
And we urge you to go to your streamers. Turns out I can't do this either.